Okay, good morning everyone. You can make yourself comfortable. You can move to the chair or you can stretch your legs. Several years ago, I had some high fever which continued for a couple of weeks, even though I took Advil or aspirin. So I went to some herb doctor or acupuncturist. He said, it is because I used my body and mind too much. It is because I overworked. Just like when we drive our car too long, the engine becomes heated. So if you take some rest, we'll come back to the normal state. Just like when we have some fever, it tells something. It gives us some signal that we need to do. Likewise, when we have suffering in our mind or in our life, what does that tell to us? Particularly from the perspective of the universal truth or from the Dharma, what does it mean? One of the most prominent Buddhist master in Korea is Dosun in Joseon dynasty. He was born in a noble family and he was very smart, bright person. But for some unknown reason, he was not lucky. Even though he studied very hard, he constantly failed the civil service examination. In order to, he had to pass through the judicial examination in order to become high-ranking government official. He felt very sorry for himself, and he retreated himself in some Buddhist monastery. For the first time in his life, he read Buddhist scripture and learned practicing sitting meditation. His life was changed. He changed his path. And when he recollected his life, then probably his failure in the civil service examination may be the plan of the universe, so that he's born with some another destiny. Because not just that master's case, because of some challenge, difficulty, which constantly arise in our life, then through those adverse situations, we many times come to think about something more fundamental instead of blindly following the worldly things, and discover some Dharma or reset our life goal, change our life direction, etc. I also have some similar experience. I loved something religion, not necessarily Buddhism, but Islam, or even when I was very young, I think compared with other person, I was a little religious or spiritual person. For example, I loved oil painting. The painters, my favorite painters happen to be the one who painted some religious themes like El Greco or Michelangelo, etc. But when I was a senior, when I was in regular college, I had some anxiety problem. I felt like I was chased by something. So from that moment, I start to practice sitting meditation. I become a person of faith. So that was pretty big turning point for me to change my life direction, which ultimately led to becoming a Won Buddhist minister. I think it's a kind of a blessing when I recollect those days. All people, though, dislike disappointment or suffering and desire for happiness or freedom. But our life does not go in that way. Then when we encounter some kind of a disappointment or suffering or all kinds of dissatisfaction, then what is the Buddha's teaching? How can we skillfully cope with those challenges? There are several things that Buddha taught us before. First of all, what is the first Dharma, the first Buddha's teaching after he attained great enlightenment? Kathy, what is his first teaching? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Buddha taught a lot of things, but they usually say the first Dharma he taught is Four Noble Truths. Four Noble Truths. Arya means noble or something that stands out. The first Noble Truth goes, life is dukkha. Dukkha means dissatisfaction, dis-ease, or suffering. Why Buddha said it is noble? Suffering is not noble, definitely. But our recognition may be very noble. Buddha said dukkha, dissatisfaction is a universal thing. We do not have to think why this happens to me or to my family, etc. So even though we do not know, it happens in each and every family, in each and every country. So when we climb, for example, to the top of the Catskill Mountain, whatever trail you use, we have to encounter some steep area. So life goes in that way. So we have to realize that and accept that as they are. This is my favorite story. It comes from the Bible, from the Samuel. You know, the king of Israel, David, did some sexual misconduct. He had an affair with his general's wife. In order to kill the general Uriah, he sent the general to the field where the battle was so fierce, and the general was not supported a lot of army. And he died. When he was visited by the prophet Nathan, Nathan told David, "This is what the Lord says, I am bringing trouble to you from your own family." And the Lord caused the son of David and Bathsheba, the Uriah's widow, to be very sick. David prayed to God for the baby. David fasted and went into his house and stayed there, lying on the ground all night. The elders of David's family came to him and tried to pull him up from the ground, but he refused to get up or to eat the food with them. On the seventh day, the baby died. David's servants were afraid to tell him that the baby was dead. They said, "Look, we tried to talk to David while the baby was alive, but refused to listen to us. If we tell him the baby's dead, he may do something awful." When David saw his servants whispering, he knew that the baby was dead. So he asked them, "Is the baby dead?" They answered, "Yes, he's dead." Then David got up from the floor, washed himself, put lotion on, and changed his clothes. Then he went into the Lord's house to worship. After that, he went home and asked for something to eat. His servants gave him some food, and he ate. David's servants said to him, "Why are you doing this? When the baby was still alive, you fasted and you cried. Now that the baby is dead, you get up and eat the food." David said, "While the baby was still alive, I fasted and I cried. I thought, who knows, maybe the Lord will feel sorry for me and let the baby live. But now that the baby is dead, why should I fast? I can't bring him back to life. Someday I will go to him, but he cannot come back to him." So when finally, despite his sincere repentance and the prayer, the baby died. But instead of feeling sorry for himself, David decided in his mind to move on, and he calmly accepted him, and he came to the normal life. I think he's really a man of God, a man of faith. It's one of my favorite stories in the Old Testament. We do not have to think about why it happens. It is not the point. Sometimes it happens because of our karma. Throughout many lives, we have created so many karmas, wholesome or unwholesome. The karmic principle of cause and effect is the universal principle. The founding master of Won Buddhism said, he explained that in some scientific way, in accordance with the principle of a circulation of 4 seasons in heaven and earth, there is for the myriad things a transition between birth, old age, sickness, and death. And in accordance with the law of the alternating predominance of yin and yang in the universe, they'll manifest among human beings the wholesome and unwholesome retributions and the response of a cause and effect. Thus, winter is the time when yin flourishes. But because the yang is contained within yin, the yang gradually grows stronger until finally spring and the summer appears. Summer is the time when yang flourishes. But because the winter, the yin is contained within yang, yin gradually grows stronger until finally autumn and winter appears. In the same way, in human affairs, strength and weakness are interrelated, and as one produces what is wholesome or unwholesome, there occurs the karmic retribution of a progression and a regression, and the mutual life-giving and the mutual harm. This is the fundamental principle of a karmic cause and effect. So our founding master said when something unwholesome happens, he asked his disciples to consider that it is a great chance to pay our debt. If we stop reacting unskillfully, then the karmic cause and effect that will cease. Let's say somebody in your workplace drive you very crazy. Let's imagine that situation. He said, if someone causes you suffering or loss, do not resent or hate that person deep in your heart. Instead, consider it repayment of your past debt to that person. Settle your mind and do not confront him. When it becomes your turn to take revenge, yield to him, and then that karma will come at rest. Also, by knowing that realm in which birth and death, coming and going, as well as the suffering and the happiness are all empty, let your mind rest there. In that realm, there will be neither birth and death, nor karmic retribution. When you arrive at that state, you may say that karmic retribution of birth and death are completely extinguished. When we meditate, when we dwell in our original mind, it is the state or kind of dualistic things or karmic cause and effect will cease. But we do not have to necessarily think when something unwholesome happens, it is because of my karma. Our third head Dharma master, Venerable Dosun, said in this way, the universe tests us in two ways. One is the test of giving small challenges before providing big blessings. The other is giving people small blessings before it provides a great disaster. Many times when something happens, some challenge happens, it is the plan of the universe that make us mature and open our mind and heart to progress ourselves. Our founding master said, in entrusting a person with a greater task, there is a principle that the realm of universal truth first tests him. Even when regular people hire a laborer for a day or a year, they first check his qualifications. So how much more should this be the cause when entrusting someone with a great enterprise? Therefore, those who wish to accomplish this great task must obviously be careful first to face this past. Just like it is not necessarily like the test of Jesus. Before he led his public life, he fasted in the desert for 40 days, and then he was tested by the Satan. Our third head Dharma masters said, the test arises because of the principle of yin and yang. It always happens, particularly to the practitioners. From my experience, I learned far more from adverse situation than in favorable one. When some challenging situation arises, when we think it is a test from the realm of truth, it helps me to become more mindful, skillful, and more alert. And usually the test comes from our weaker area. Your weak area can be laziness or jealousy or whatever area, or our habit to judge people. Unlike other tests or examination we had in school, this test comes unnoticed. When you have some exam in college, the professor gives us some prior notice when we will have the test. But the test from the realm of truth always comes unnoticed. That's why we need to be mindful and careful. The kite. Have you played the kite when you're young? The kite rises against the wind, not with the wind. Just like when our muscle is put under pressure, whether it is through push-up or lift, bear some weight, the muscle grows stronger and stronger through our adverse situations. And we really become very mature, discover more fundamental, more truthful things in order to change our life direction. And my teacher told me, the smell of a beautiful rose does not come out of a can, which is used for instant food. It comes from dirty soil, from toils and sweat at the same time. I'm not sure this is all the doctors think or not. I heard from one doctor. My nephew broke his bone in the playground. And my sister was worried about it. He's a very restless boy. And he can break his bone again. But the doctor told us when the bone is broken and it heals, that part becomes more stronger. And the same pressure is applied, it is not the part. The other part will be broken because that healed part becomes more stronger. So if we are mindful and skillful to cope with all kinds of challenges in our mind, when it is healed, I think that area will become our stronger point. So my teacher always told me, there is a weak moment. There may be a weak area in our life, in our mind, but there is no weak person. Like the bone, when it is healed, our weakest area becomes our strength and our strong point. That's why in the Mahayana Buddhism, they say, samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara. Samsara, wandering around, the suffering word. But all the enlightened masters, because of some dukkha, because of some dissatisfaction in their life, they started to practice, motivate, to walk on the Dharma path, and eventually attain enlightenment. So the suffering is the mother of a Buddha. That's why in Buddhism it is called samsara is a nirvana and nirvana is a samsara. Do you know when the Martin Luther translated the Bible into German? When he was in prison, because of his progressive ideas, he was against Catholicism, he was incarcerated, and he did a wonderful job. So when we are very much mindful and alert and understand the Dharma meaning of all kinds of challenges in our life, we can transform all kinds of difficulties into a blessing, a stepping stone for us to move forward. Okay, thank you.